Sharon Murph, 2023 Chair of the Roberts Regional Chamber Board of Directors.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Eggs and Issues. This is a bit of a bittersweet morning for me, as this will be my last time hosting for you all, unless Michael asks me to be his understudy. But that also means it's the last time I'm going to have to introduce Ron Weigel to the stage for dad jokes, invocation, and pledge. Before I do that, I do want to give a round of applause to our ongoing series sponsor for Eggs and Issues, House and Healthcare, which you just saw the video. Thank you for allowing us to use this space every time we host Eggs and Issues. It's wonderful. And now, Ron, if you'll please make your way.
T-shirt.
Not yet. Everything in due time. If y'all rise, let's say a prayer. Lord, we love because you loved us first. We're so grateful for your love and grace, and so thankful for all that you provide. We're grateful for this community. We're grateful for all the servant hearts that are represented here. And I just lift up, first responders, healthcare, and our military come to mind right now. And I just ask special blessing on them. And I also ask, as usual, for us to be sensitive to the needs of those around us, so we can love in the way that you want us to love. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. You want me in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll be seated. Thank you. I didn't have this surprise planned, but it's just funny how fate works. So Deborah and Scott, thank you for this. They gave me a t-shirt, and since I never know what kind of look I'm going to get from Sarah, I'm going to ask her to hold this up while I share a couple dad jokes with you, so that you have no choice but to laugh. And if you can't see, it says reigning dad joke champion. Okay, I'm going to wear that proudly. All right, I have two for you this morning. Start with some levity. Let's see here. All right.
They're not good, I'm dropping.
Did you hear her? If they're not good, she's dropping them. What did the mother turkey say to her disobedient children? If your father could see you now, he'd turn over in his gravy. See, I thought that was pretty good. Okay. What do you get if you divide the circumference of a pumpkin by its diameter? Pumpkin pie. That's the STEM. That's the STEM impact. I know that's okay. I didn't get as much of a laugh out of that. Thank you for making my problem. I like to have some levity, but I've said this before. I'm grateful for all that the Chamber does in the community in many different ways. They represent a lot of value. I know all of us are members of, if we're not, we should be, for all that they do for us. And this is just one aspect of it, having these meaningful conversations about what's going on in the community and things that we all need to know about. So April, thank you for that. And so I just wanted to take just a second for those of you that aren't familiar with Synovus. I just want to take literally 1 minute and share just a couple, key points I think I would want you to be aware of. Number one, a lot of people may not know that we're a 135-year-old institution with almost 40 years or almost 4 decades of service in this particular community. And the way I look at what we do is we pride ourselves, on being more than just a financial institution, but more a committed partner to our businesses, organizations, individuals in the community. And so we do that because we understand that time gives us the expertise to understand unique challenges that are faced by businesses and ways that we can help navigate those. And so whether or not it's commercial or small business or loans or treasury services or SBA or wealth, we have all those resources and we're glad to share them. And that's the financial side. We also are really deeply committed to this community in more ways than you might see on the surface. You know, we put feet to work in meaningful causes, and we try and make contributions where we can. So we're grateful for the opportunity to serve the community in the ways that we can, and we're grateful for all that you do, for all your support. So thank you very much. Thank you.
I've known Ron a long time, so I have permission to make these jokes, but he is a great community leader and a great volunteer leader as well in our community, so I do appreciate you, Ron, and thank you for letting me pick on you this year. Today's session is also sponsored by Cox Business, with additional support provided by Total Computer Solutions, Terma, and Mission Critical Comfort Solutions. At this time, I would like to invite our fellow board member, Karen Fry, to the stage to make comments for Cox.
Gosh, is that like walk-on music? Good morning, everybody. Like as Sarah said, my name is Karen Fry. I'm the Market Vice President for Cox in Middle Georgia. And we are so excited to be the presenting sponsor today. Not only are we huge advocates of the Robbins Regional Chamber, we are also proud partners of the 21st Century Partnership and support all they do in the community. In fact, for the past 125 years, community partnership has been a key focus for us. And while our business continues to evolve with the addition of products like Cox Mobile, which hopefully you've heard about on TV, we also offer Cox cloud-based services as well as cybersecurity services for Cox businesses. But in the end, while we continue to evolve, our values as a company remain the same. Things like being a good citizen in the communities that we serve and being committed to helping shape a better world. So I just wanted to thank you for the time today, and we look forward to the program. Thank you.
And now, the reason why you're all here, the program today. The scope and impact of the missions at Robbins Air Force Base is a driving force in our local economy and way of life here. The installation of these missions are vital to our region, our nation, and the world. Today, we have the great honor of hearing about how the organization is supporting our base, promoting and protecting those missions and the men and women who make them happen. At this time, please help me welcome President and CEO of the 21st Century Partnership, retired Brigadier General John Kubinick, Chief Operating Officer of the Vector Center, retired Colonel Don Lane, and the Georgia Commissioner of Veterans Services, Patricia Ross, along with the Chamber President and CEO, April Bragg, to moderate today's discussion.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you guys so much for being here. I look across this crowd every single month when we host these, and am just truly blessed to live in and represent a community that has such tremendous support from our community for all of the organizations that are touching the lives of the men and women who call the Robbins region home. If you look around, you'll see your peers and fellow leaders in our community, and it demonstrates to me that the partners we have and that get featured in this series are making a tremendous and positive impact, and each and every one of you wants the opportunity to learn a little bit more, to be a little more informed and involved, and identify opportunities for continued partnership and support. So we're so excited to have this esteemed panel with us. It's an event I look forward to every single year, and I love the timing. Because of the SPLOST, which, by the way, thank you, voters of House and County, for approving the SPLOST. Those of you voted in Warner Robbins for approving the brunch bill. But we had to flip our programming in order to have one focus on the SPLOST, and it aligned our partnership program with Veterans Day. And I can't think of a more appropriate time in our year to reflect on the important work of the partnership as well as veteran services in our community and in our state. So Sarah has already introduced our panel, but General Kubinick, I'm going to start with you. It's exciting to have these two join us today, but since the last time you and I talked, a lot has happened with the partnership, and many in this room can appreciate how much of your work is behind the scenes, but we've seen a lot of work come out of the partnership in the last 12 months. So can you just, we'll start there with kind of an overview and introduction of your folks and all that.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, April. Good morning, y'all. How are we doing today? I don't think this is working. Good morning, y'all. How are we doing today? Doing all right? Hey, good morning. Good morning. It's a great day to be here. Thank you, April, for all that you do and all your chamber team does for this community. I was walking in with Colonel Reese. By the way, if you haven't met our somewhat new installation commander, Colonel Dedrick Reese, he's going to put his hand up right there, and we're going to give him a big round of applause. We are very blessed to have a leader like Colonel Reese here leading our 78th Air Base Wing, and this is Colonel Reese's first Eggs and Issues, so that's really exciting. And but thank you, April, for doing this for the chamber, putting this together every month. It really is informative, and to get leaders that I see around this room here to listen to the issues is very important. So I applaud you and your team for all that you do. I would like to acknowledge all of the veterans in the room today. If you're a veteran in this room, would you please stand up and let us give you the due applause that you deserve? Please stand up for our veterans. Thank you all very much. And when we had to switch the dates, I went to April and we said, hey, let's focus a little bit on our veterans today. So I'll talk a little bit. And I'll try not to take too much time. I do want to give you an update because there's a lot of good things happening in the partnership, but I really want to yield time to Colonel Lane, who runs our Vector Center, and to Commissioner Ross. It's great to have you back in Middle Georgia, Commissioner, and I can tell you I'm on the Veteran Service Board with Commissioner Ross, and I can tell you she is doing an unbelievable job serving our veterans all across the state. And Trish, thank you so much for the work you do. It is really amazing. And we all should be very proud because she's one of ours, she's up there leading that. So to your question,
yes.
Things that are going on in the partnership. Hey, there's a lot going on at Robbins Air Force Base. I want to acknowledge all of our friends from Robbins that are here. That is why the partnership exists. We are here because of them. If it wasn't for the important missions that they have at that base, we wouldn't have a partnership. And so every day we wake up and we think about how can we support Colonel Reese and his mission? How can we support Miss Stanley and the mission of the ALC? How can we support the 461st and the 116th? How can we support every mission on this installation? And that's what we think about. And there's a lot of changes happening. We talked about this last year, but you can see the changes now. We just had a great celebration on Saturday. The last flight of the J-Stars was on Saturday, and it was really a cool event. There were hundreds and hundreds of people out there, family members, watching that last J-Star sortie. In fact, and that sortie that landed on Saturday was supposed to fly out to the Boneyard on Monday. It broke, so it didn't quite make it. If Colonel Reese was the maintenance officer there, I'm sure it would have been all right. But it's going to fly off to Arizona and go to the Boneyard, and that ends a decades-long chapter of the J-Stars being at Robbins. But when you think about the new missions, and we've talked a lot about them, but we're seeing them now. Over these past 6 months, we went to the stand-up of the Kingpin mission, which is happening now. We just went to the stand-up of the Spectrum Warfare Wing mission. And the commander of that wing, who's at Eglin, came up for that and stood up the detachment here. I will tell you, there's a lot of really high-tech stuff happening there, and a lot of it's over my head, but I can tell you it is instrumental for our future warfighting, and that means it's relevant for the long term, and that's exactly what we want at Robbins Air Force Base. You have the first Bacon aircraft has landed at Robbins, so that's 3 of the 4 new missions. You see tangible things happen. In the 4th mission, the ABMS family of systems, if you're over on the other side of that base, you see a lot of construction happening. When construction happens, that means something's happening there. It's very tangible. And so I think thanks to the work of your partnership and certainly our federal delegations and our state and local delegations pushing the Air Force, the new missions that we've been talking about for a long time are happening. They're coming now. And that is a really good thing for Robbins Air Force Base. And y'all should be really happy about that. We're going to continue to push that. We'll continue to make sure those timelines stay on track, continue to support those new missions any way they need them, but they're here. They're not coming anymore, they're here and continuing to grow. So very excited about that piece. A couple other quick things, if I can. I want to talk about some of the work that we're doing on the legislative front. And I give tons of credit to our COO and the partnership, Dan Rhodes. Dan is a tireless worker on behalf of the men and women of Robbins and the missions of Robbins. Dan's the kind of guy that likes to read legislation, and he reads the NDAA and he likes it, which is special. You got to have that, right? But because of that, we know what's going on. We know how to influence that. We have some members of our state delegation here today, and I just want to thank them. I see Chairman Dickey, Chairman Blackman, I see Representative Ballard, and we have Chairman Bonner visiting us today. He's Chairman of the Defense and Veterans Committee on the House, and we want to give him a warm welcome here to Exit Issues. Thank you, sir. And I do apologize if I didn't see any of our other representatives here. I apologize if I didn't call you out. So, sir, thank you. One of the things we're really working on, I want to give Representative Ballard a lot of credit for how she pushed this last year and will continue to push, is on our spouse licensure. As you know, in the Air Force, it's one of the Air Force's key priorities when they look at communities and look at states, is how military spouses are able to get employment when their spouse moves to a different state. So we've been working really hard on that. We were really close last year getting that bill across the finish line. Have high hopes for this legislative session that we'll be able to finish that. And we'll have Georgia as a state that is easy for military spouses to come and work. And that's what we want. We have so many federal military bases in this state, we've got to make it easy for our spouses to come here when their active duty members get assigned here in Georgia. So very, very special, very important thing for us, and we thank Representative Ballard and all of our representatives for pushing that, getting that across the finish line this year. Last thing. You've seen them all around town. You've seen mailboxes for the 21st Century Partnership, right? To write letters to our airmen at the base. Y'all, the partnership is 30 years old. Because of the vision of leaders in this community 30 years ago, we have an organization that thinks about supporting Robbins Air Force Base. 30 years ago. And we've been running strong ever since. So on behalf and kind of in celebration of those 30 years, because we have a very motivated member of our team in Deborah Cox. She says, let's get 30,000 letters for everybody at Robbins Air Force Base. So that's what we're trying to do. We're not there yet, y'all. So we need some help. So help us get to 30,000 letters. I think there's something around here somewhere today, right? They can help write letters. There's not. But come see Deborah. She'll help you write a letter. Raise your hand, Deborah. There she is. Come see Deborah. She's going to help you write a letter. The other thing that we've been doing for years, but we've really energized it over the last year, and we're going to give her a round of applause here in a second, but we've got over 600 care packages that were delivered to the base this week. And those care packages are going to go out to all the men and women who are deployed. Because we tend to forget now, as we're out of Afghanistan and Iraq, and we're not in that high tempo that we're used to, or have been for almost 2 decades. There's still a lot of people that aren't going to be home this Christmas. They're going to be around the world supporting the missions that we have. And as you read the news like I do, that's even more critical today than it was even a few months ago. And so those men and women who are deployed need to know that we haven't forgot about them and we're thinking about them. And so Deborah's led the charge, and thanks to a lot of generosity from you all and partners like Robbins Financial Credit Union, who delivered a ton of boxes to us earlier this week, we're going to be able to say thank you to them. And so I want to give Deborah a round of applause for really leading
Thank you so much. And that effort has been so visible and so impactful in our community, and as General Kubenick said, for our deployed around the globe. So we certainly appreciate that. So we spent a good bit of our time last year talking about the recent, at that point, award of the Georgia AIM grant. Can you give us an update on that? What it looks like, what's been accomplished so far, and what we can expect to see?
Absolutely, I'm getting my notes out. I find I write notes to myself in my little notebook, and then I can't read them. So I have to write in like really big letters now so I can read my notes. Georgia AIM has been going great. So your partnerships worked really hard with our teammates from, with Angie Giesling and the Houston County Development Authority, with Fort Valley State University, with Central Georgia Tech, and our vice chairman of the partnership, Dr. Allen, who's here today. We've worked really hard on, one, just working through the administrative parts you have to do when you have a big grant like that. And I want to give a lot of thanks to Lori Freeman and the partnership team for all that she has done to make sure that we have the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and we actually were able to get the money. And Laura Mathis and the Middle Georgia Regional Commission really helped with us. So we actually were able to get the money, and now it is going to good use across the different areas. So Angie has hired Dr. Joe Richardson, who is here today. Dr. Richardson, raise your hand. Everyone knows Dr. Richardson. He's the Executive Director of the Middle Georgia Innovation Project, really leading the way on integrating academia and industry and our base on everything that's happening in innovation. We weren't able to do that without this grant, and that was really important. And by the way, if you saw me sit up a little bit straighter when I mentioned Joe Richardson's name, I still have some beer from our days 30 plus years ago at the Air Force Academy there, and he used to yell at me. So. Fort Valley State is building out the mobile STEM lab that we've talked about. They actually are physically building that out right now. Really excited about how that's going to reach kids that we don't normally reach and get out to areas or rural areas in their state and teach kids about STEM. We have to grow this STEM pipeline. I mean, we're doing it now, but it's not going to be enough for what you need in your industries and what the base needs in the future of those type of employees. We've got to grow that, and that's what we're working on through that. With Central Georgia Technical College, we've got a robotics training lab actually at Colonel Lane's Vector Center. So we'll be able to, as they grow more robotics work at Robbins and Miss Stanley's organization, we'll be able to train those men and women right across the street from the base at Colonel Lane's Vector Center, thanks to partnership with Central Georgia Technical College on that. And then we were very fortunate to snag Bob Herman when he retired and make him the executive director of the Middle Georgia STEM Alliance. Some of you have some really funky pencils on your table that Bob, I think he hand carved those. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that, but I'm not sure where those came from. But Bob's done a great job leading this Middle Georgia STEM Alliance. We always had this vision, but we really didn't have the resources to do anything with it. Bob and the Middle Georgia STEM Alliance have given over $100,000 worth of scholarships to local kids going to local schools and getting STEM degrees. And the hope there is those local kids that go to local schools will work in local companies or work at Robbins Air Force Base in the future. And so really encouraging that with this. We're also growing in the K through 12 area, and my good friend Dr. Scott is here, and our friends from the Houston County Board of Education. Appreciate everything you are doing to partner with us. We're growing the Lego Robotics Lab. These are the younger kids. We're growing that in this region from 6 schools that we're doing that to 24 programs. Because we got to get younger, get them excited, younger and younger, and keep nurturing these kids through high school and into college and into STEM fields so that we can then hire them at Robbins or in your companies because we all need them. And so that's really exciting about what we're doing with that. And then just to close out there and to reiterate, we're going to have to grow this pipeline. Mike Doubleday is here. Mike is the director of the 402nd Software Engineering Group. Mike has, raise your hand there, Mike, come on. You guys, if you don't know Mike, you need to go see Mike after this. That was half-hearted.
Yeah.
Half-hearted. This guy runs software for Robbins Air Force Base. He's a great guy too. I mean, Mike is a great American, and we were very fortunate to have him. Software went under a reorganization lately. You've heard me talk about this before. And this year, all of the software groups at the 3 ALC bases, Tinker, Hill, and Robbins, all now work for one software director. And so Mike is the director of the software group here. His numbers don't change. In fact, they're growing. He has hundreds of vacancies right now. Miss Stanley in the ALC has over 100 engineering vacancies right now. That's just 2 units on base we just talked about, not even the rest of them. That's how important growing this STEM career field is. And if you were going to ask about the software directorate, we have not given up on wanting the director of this whole software enterprise to sit right here at Robbins Air Force Base. That decision has not been made yet. It's still to be determined, and I can assure you that your partnership is working very hard to ensure that the people that are gonna make that decision know how much this community has invested in the software mission, how much we are committed to that software mission, and how much we will support it if that director sits here. So we're still working that, and we'll keep you updated on that. So thanks to Bob and to Dan and to Lori and to Deborah for all they do in the partnership. It's been a big year. Between all that's happening at the base, all we're doing legislatively, all we are doing with the Georgia AIM grant and STEM education.
Wonderful, thank you. Oh. On. Okay, okay, all right, you can hear me now, the light went off. Thank you so much for that update, and I want to pinpoint something that you mentioned about taking STEM education to those areas that don't have the same access. We all know Houston County is a leader in STEM education, and something that I think is easy for us to take for granted is how far advanced our programming is from those partners in the region. And this mobile STEM lab that Fort Valley is working on is going to go into and bring STEM education in many instances for the first time in some of our rural areas, like our neighbors in Twiggs and Dooley and surrounding counties. And why that should be important to each and every one of you is that Robins Air Force Base still needs a larger workforce. They draw from nearly 100, I think, Dan, of the 159 counties in employees. It takes that many people in the pipeline in order to meet the demands that they have, and then of course all of the companies and organizations supporting them. So we can't stress enough the importance of that. And as you mentioned earlier, it is nice to have you home. Colonel Ross, Trish Ross and I used to sit very close to each other at church on Sundays, and now, as much as we hated to lose you in the community, I feel like we have gained you in a very new and significant role. The role not being new, but us having just a greater connection with the role in the Department of Veteran Services. So, if you will, welcome. It's so nice just to see your smiling face here, but if you will just kind of share, what you're doing now in your new role, and give us an overview. What is the population size like of our veterans and the scope of those individuals that you serve?
Well, thank you, April. It is definitely good to be back home. I really do feel like I am home. Although I've moved a little closer to Atlanta just to shorten that commute, this definitely, I see so many friends and family here. So thank y'all for having me today. Georgia Department of Veteran Service, we're pretty expansive. Most folks don't even really know what we do, but we've been around for over 70 years, and we're stood up mainly when the U.S. Federal Veterans Administration was brought into legislation, and they realized that states and territories needed an independent broker to help our veterans and their survivors get their earned benefits based on their active duty time. So we've been around for a long time. It's just not a lot of folks know about us. So a big piece of what we do is, again, work with the VA for benefits. You've got a team at Don's Vector Center, a 3-person team there. We've got a team at the Macon community-based outpatient clinic, and we're going to have another team that'll stand up when the Perry Clinic comes on board. So about 130 of my 160 folks within the state do that one-on-one veteran service, kind of boots on the ground, helping folks navigate that benefits process, because we all know the VA does not make that simple. So that's a big piece of what we're doing. And that is for about 700,000 veterans here in the state of Georgia. And just last year alone, we saw about half that population. So about 350,000 touch points of individuals we have assisted, which is huge, because into the state of Georgia, that equates to about $3.6 billion into veterans' pockets, into our economies, helping Georgia grow. And so I know I see many legislators out here helping to make Georgia a very veteran-friendly state. So that's a big piece of what we do is trying to make sure that our veterans get what they earn, and that we're doing everything to connect them to the resources that they need while here in the state. That kind of corresponds with what we do with the Vector Center and Don's group, but That's a big piece. We do a couple of other things most folks don't know about. So we have 2 state cemeteries. Many of you may know the one in Milledgeville. That's our big one. 142 acres. We just got an expansion grant from the VA, so we're going to be growing that out. And then we have a 42-acre cemetery down in Glenville. Primarily serves the Fort Stewart area. And then 2 skilled nursing homes. A big thing for us this past few months was our home in Milledgeville underwent a new contractor. And so for the first time in almost 30 years, we have a new contractor running that skilled nursing facility. A very large campus here within the state. And then we have another skilled nursing home down in Augusta, serving our veterans there. So we pretty much have them from the time they get out of the service until memorializing them in the best way we possibly can through national quality state cemeteries for our veterans and their spouses.
Thank you so much for that. So it really is hard to believe that you've been in this for almost 2 years now. And if you can kind of share with us, coming into the role, perhaps maybe what are 3 of the top things that the department has accomplished during the time that you've been there?
Okay. We'll try to keep this short because I can go all day with
Take
this.
your time.
We've been doing a lot. So the first thing, primarily, you may have seen us, is we've been doing a lot of outreach. So prior to me coming in the position, and I know this kind of, I can look at all of y'all and you know how important outreach is to your veteran community. We were expecting people to come into our offices. Well, we weren't reaching a lot of our veterans that were in need, and so we've been doing a tremendous amount of outreach. Within the last few months, we probably have worked every weekend all across this state to reach veterans, to do claims on site in partnership with other organizations, other veteran service organizations, colleges, you name it. If we were asked, we were there and doing claims on site. So trying to reach our veterans where they are, that is a huge initiative. As part of that is using a system that we piloted when I was still with Vector, but we were fortunate enough to get a state grant. So for 3 years, we've got a system called Unite Us. It's a technological platform, but it kind of is part of a larger initiative called Unite Georgia. What that does is it allows us, the Vector Center and the Technical College System of Georgia, to include the Office of Workforce Development, to bring on board at no cost to them social service organizations, nonprofits, so that when a veteran comes to us or we find them and they may have needs outside of just VA benefits, we connect them with things like housing, food, education, we connect them with transportation, kind of this whole host of things, legal assistance. And so that's allowed us to kind of create this holistic support for veterans statewide. We still need help with that. I will tell you, not necessarily here in Middle Georgia, y'all are doing great, but our more rural areas of the state, we are having difficulty finding organizations that can serve them. So that is another big push. Probably the third thing, we all know that as a country, we have a mental health crisis, and veterans are no different. Suicide prevention and outreach has been a big push for us. We actually lead the Governor's Challenge, and we have a whole host of not just social organizations, but federal and state partners coming alongside to help stop veteran suicide, military suicide, family member suicide. And so from doing education and training throughout the state, online, in person, to actually hosting a summit for the first time this year. We have another one scheduled in June. We are putting a lot of effort in trying to determine if somebody has the risk factors for suicide, and all of our offices have a screener to be able to determine if somebody is at that higher moderate risk, so that we can get them to the right organization, connect them to whether it's the VA or whether it's another community organization. And I do have to thank again our state legislators. I can't see, there he is, Chairman Blackman. We got a mental health grant that we ended up where we don't get any of the funds, but we administer it, and it went to 2 organizations that are helping provide mental and behavioral health services to veterans active duty military and their families. And so that also is a really big initiative for us to help with mental behavioral health that could potentially lead to suicide. So that's probably the big three for us right now.
That's really important work. So, in addition to mental health and the topics we just discussed, and I know you and I discussed some surprising topics at the table, what do you see as the top issues impacting veterans? How are you and the Georgia Department of Veteran Services addressing those? And I think finally, in that vein, why is this so important for us as community members, who a number of whom are not veterans, to be aware of and know about?
Okay, I'm going to start with that last part first, if you don't mind. Why is this important? So there's a direct correlation with how we treat our veterans to whether we can recruit the next generation of military. So it's a national security issue. It's an imperative that by showing our young people how we treat those who have served in uniform and have sacrificed so much for our freedoms, that we can then get those that qualify into our armed services. So that first and foremost is kind of the why we do so much for our veterans. Two, they deserve it. Think about all that they have done for us. Whether you've been in uniform or whether you've not served in uniform, I think you can probably have some sort of understanding about that tremendous sacrifice, about everything that military members give up, their families give up on behalf of us to ensure our freedom. I mean, you just look, like General Kubinick said, you look at the headlines and realize, we're still involved in wars across this globe, even though officially the global war on terror ended 2 years ago. And unfortunately, what we found in talking to some of our partners is support to veterans organizations is kind of waning, because they think, oh, we're at peace. Well, we're not. So that's kind of the big why. Probably one of the biggest things we're trying to focus on now is the number one issue that will predict whether you will have issues, whether it's mental behavioral health, food insecurity, employment issues, etc., suicidality, and ideations, is whether you're homeless, whether you can afford housing. As everybody knows, with the housing crisis and kind of inflation, our veterans are struggling to find affordable housing for them and their families. Many of them may only get limited disability from the VA, and that has become a huge issue for us. And we are trying to partner with organizations across the state to help with veteran homelessness. I will tell you, there will probably never be enough organizations to partner with, because that's not just a veteran issue, but it is, I think, an American issue right now. But that is a big thing that we are trying to accomplish through that platform, that Unite Us platform, as well as to connect to all of those other social services. And we're also working across agencies too, so trying to tap into our other state agencies for things like mental and behavioral health, things like aging in place. So that's a big piece of what we do, is trying to bring everything we can to bear to help our veterans. I think what may be surprising to a lot of folks is we all have this image of a veteran. If you're not a veteran, you may have this image of a veteran. But in looking at research, more civilians have PTS than military members. So we're not all struggling. But we do know that for those that are struggling, asking for help usually doesn't come until it's a crisis. It's usually a last minute thing, because as military members, we don't ask for help. We've learned not to ask for help. So when they do, we have to act quickly. And that is something that we're trying to do. We've recently stood up a foundation, again with community partners, to be able to meet these needs statewide.
Thank you so much. As we head into Veterans Day, what for you is the main takeaway that you want this group to take with them beyond our program and our time here today?
If you're not a veteran, get to know veterans. So when we had the draft, before the all-volunteer force, we didn't have this military-civilian divide. Every one of us had a family member or a close friend that had served in the military. That is no longer the case. I will tell you, in this room, that's probably the case. You know, it's more likely that if you're, you know, from the southeast, you're near a military installation, you've had a family member that has served, that you will be more likely to serve in our armed forces. But across the country, that is no longer the case. Very few Americans know that less than 1% population that is currently serving in our military. So they don't have this understanding of the sacrifice. And again, it becomes a national security issue if we can't recruit new people, new young individuals into our armed services. So I would say, I would ask you, get to know a veteran, get to know their stories. You know, my dad's finally opening up about his time in Vietnam. We need to pass those stories on, and we need to make those social connections. Loneliness is also a big indicator for our veteran population, and all of us, as far as whether we are depressed, have anxiety, are considering suicide. So connect with your veterans, get to know who they are, pass that along to your kids, and make sure that their legacy lives on.
Trish, thank you so much for coming home.
You're welcome.
To share with us today, and I'll make sure to spend some time with her before she heads off after the program. So Colonel Lane, this is your first time up here with us, and it's kind of a surprise to me, actually. I think many in the room have probably toured the Vector Center, marveled at your value wall when they come in. But if you could just, for those that may not have, or as a refresher, just share a little bit about what the Vector Center is, perhaps the fact that it's not just here to serve Warner Robins or right across the street from the base, and share a little bit about the work that your team does there.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. You know, first I'd like to take the opportunity. There's never been a chance in one room for me to say thank you to the folks that made the Vector Center happen, all in one room. So through the servant leadership and the visionary leadership of folks like Dr. Allen, Jeff Scruggs, Representative Blackman, and Trish Ross, all in one room right now, to say thank you for getting that done. That's it. It's a great So what we do is, our goal, similar to what she was talking about, is to be the one-stop shop for veterans, transitioning active duty folks, active duty, or their spouses, to come in and, you know, make it easier to access those benefits. Her 3 employees, it's one of the secrets of Vector that make it so great. The people in there don't work for me. You know, that you have to be able to build a team like that to get all that needs doing done for these veterans. I would say daily the population that travels in and out of our doors are there to see the 3 folks that work for Georgia Department of Veteran Services to work benefit issues. So we're there for that. The other side of what we do is that transitioning troop, airman, soldier, Marine, sailor, we prepare them for that civilian life. So many times, you know, I'll use a soldier, an infantryman as an example. They're not trained for something that translates into that civilian life. Quite honestly, they're trained to shoot things and blow things up. And they need that skill when they come out of the military, and we're there to help make that happen. We do that through what we like to refer as the 3 E's, and that education, employment, and entrepreneurial training. Those accomplish getting those troops ready for the civilian life. You know, that employment, 100% of the folks that come through Vector, the young troops, have a job when they come out. That's a great stat, you know, and we work hard to maintain that. They do that through relationships with you guys in that job shadowing program. We educate through CGTC, leading the way and establishing the programs that are needed for the jobs that are needed in Middle Georgia. It's awesome that those jobs are translated nationwide. It's the same needs across the nation as it is in Middle Georgia, but our goal is to employ right here and get all that going. The entrepreneur leg, we use VBOC, Veterans Business Outreach Center. We try to train those veterans that are interested in establishing their own business. We try to train them to get them ready to do that at the Vector Center. The last big thing, and I alluded to it for the Vector Center, the fact that no one in there works actually for the Vector Center. Weekly, we have people at Department of Labor, Vet Services and Mental Health, and we have folks that set up offices and we give them room to do that for our veterans. So they set up times and they meet at Vector Center so that we can be that one-stop shop, and that is our mission.
Yeah. And if you have not seen some of you mentioned your programs, whether it's HVAC or any of the other programs, the truck driving, it is incredible that resource is right here in our community, and those programs are, offered basically continuously, but they're in a reasonable time frame, so people can get in, get trained, get to work very quickly in our community and beyond.
With that being said, I would invite anyone to come see me afterwards and set up a time to come see Vector. I tour Vector. I see so many people that took me up on this last time I said it publicly, probably weekly. So I'm more than happy to have anyone join that. I want you to know what Vector is, and I want you to be able to pass the word on when that discussion comes up. And I'll take you through those labs of HVAC and welding and industrial systems and that new AI and robotics laboratory as well. So please see me afterwards, and we'll set up a time for you to be a part of one of those tours.
That's amazing, and so many of you may be hiring partners, having needs in those particular areas that there might be a great built-in pipeline. You mentioned AI, so let's talk about how Vector is preparing transitioning service members and veterans for careers in future dominated by technology and AI, given the rapid advancements and potential changes in their job roles.
Roger that. The General alluded to the Georgia AIM earlier, and we got to benefit from that. He mentioned the AI and robotics laboratory. So through the great efforts of CGTC, a combination of economic development, Ms. Greiner, thank you for all that hard work, the academic development, the teacher Derek Stoops. We have Mike Engel here today, who was foundational in getting that going, and Mike Pace. CGTC came together to help that happen in Vector. And through that course and that laboratory, we're able to produce an employee that is ready to go to work in that career field. It's making manufacturing easier. It's not, some people get a little nervous about taking jobs. It's not taking jobs, it's creating jobs and increasing viability of those employees and their employment into the future. So we take those folks and have them trained. We train according to what the needs are in the community. CGTC does such a great job of partnering with all the industries, especially the Air Force Base, and establishing the curriculum that we need to do to produce the person you need to hire. That's our goal. You know, we have our mission I mentioned earlier, but I would be remiss not to say, as part of CGTC, we want to produce that workforce that is in need in the local community. And as we move on and that technology grows, it's AI and robotics. So that's why we established that course. And I think this first class, it barely got off the ground in October, and we already had 10 folks sign up for it. So I'm sure every semester we'll probably have a full class, 15 people every time. The great thing about TOR in that particular laboratory is the students are the ones that talk to you about it. The teacher instructor just sets them loose, and Derek lets them lead the tour, and they'll talk about what they're learning and what they're doing as the robots are moving around. It's a good part of the tour. So.
It's fascinating, it really is. So we talked a lot about the career opportunities, entrepreneurship, all of the educational endeavors. Given the current workforce shortage that many of us across all industries are still experiencing, how does Vector contribute to supplying skilled workers for the jobs we have now, and how can our business partners in the room engage as potential hiring partners going forward?
That's kind of what we do best. We do it extremely quickly. So within 15-week time frame, CGTC manages to accelerate the training, and by the end of that, through a program called SkillBridge, and I'll briefly talk about that so you understand what it is if you don't. During an active duty member's career, the last 180 days of their career, DOD has set up a program called Skill Bridge, and they're able to, while still being paid by the government, learn that new skill that will get them a job upon retirement. So the beauty of our Skill Bridge program is not only are they still active duty, they're getting college credit through CGTC, and they're getting certificates that through partnering with the industries in the community have been developed and they recognize as a great source and a well-trained person. So we spend time training them up for that new skill, and then industry, who has already worked with us on what they want out of this employee, they're able to get that veteran that usually has a great work ethic, has the critical thinking skills that so many people want, and that makes that employee all that better. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Any final closing remarks, calls to action, anything any of you would like to add before we conclude our time today? You've always got something.
I always have something, of course. I just want to say thanks. I want to say thanks to you all, to the leaders in this community, for what you do every day to support the men and women at Robins Air Force Base. I mean, you've heard me say it before. Every day in Middle Georgia is Armed Forces Appreciation Day. It looks nice on water towers and cut into hedges, but it's the actions that you all take every day that makes it reality. And I want to say thank you for that. As we look forward in the partnership this next year, we'll be looking how do we solidify some of the work we've been doing with STEM education. This grant is great. Grants only last so long, so we really need to think, and we need to think collectively as a community. We see the need for this. How do we make sure this is enduring and we can keep it going? That's going to be one of the main focuses we have. We have tremendous supporters. All of our municipalities, from Houston County to the city of Perry, city of Warner Robins, city of Centerville, and all of the surrounding area support us financially to keep the partnership going. And many of you in this room and your businesses support the partnership. And I want to thank you for that, for what you do to keep us going. We're going to be looking at how we continue that. We're going to be keeping a close eye on the new missions and what kind of needs. When we stand up a new mission, there's a lot going on. How can we as a community continue to help those new missions as they continue to grow here at Robins? And then we're going to keep a close eye on what the Air Force is thinking about as far as what they say is important to us. We've heard them talk about education and spouse licensure. And we've taken action on both of those areas. We're working them really hard. But the Air Force will now come up with what the next things are. And healthcare is going to be one of those things that we're going to have to take a look at. We are blessed to have Houston Healthcare here at our community hospital, and all the work that Mr. Briscoe and his team do every day to support not just the men and women of Robins, but all of us. But we're going to have to continue to support our healthcare system so that they can support us and our base as we move forward. So we're looking to see what those next things are and always trying to stay a step ahead. But if you don't take anything else away, thank you for what you do to support the men and women at Robins. And thanks to Commissioner Ross and Colonel Lane for what you do every day to support our veterans. The blessing of having a big military installation like we have at Robins is that a lot of us tend to stay. And so we have a great veteran population here too. And we have a huge civilian civil service population that's here. That is something that's so unique to us, and we are so blessed to have. It ties this community to the base in ways that other bases don't. Because with that blessing comes responsibility for us to take care of those veterans, take care of those civil servants when they retire. And I just appreciate you all for what you do. Thanks, April.
Wonderful. Please join me in thanking our panel.
I'm going to do this very quickly. When I left the 78th Air Base Wing there with Colonel Reeks, I served, of course, a few years before he became the commander. I knew that I wanted to serve my fellow men and women who were wearing the uniform of our nation. And so many of you here in this room allowed me to do that. And I want to personally thank, I know my CGTC friends. I see Dr. Allen, Jeff Scruggs, Andrea, Tanya. I know I saw Representative Blackman allowed me to do that. And I think it is through their belief and my passion to continue to do this that I've been allowed to now serve the state's veterans. And I am very humbled and honored to do that, and so grateful that I got to start in this community because y'all do it right. And I am very blessed to have been a part of this community and hope to be at some point in the future again. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Very quickly, I just wanted to reiterate that I would love to have any of you come out and tour Vector. Appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thank you so much.
Wonderful, thank you. As Sarah mentioned, this is our last Eggs and Issues of the year, and I just want to reiterate our appreciation for your continued support of this series and the Chamber. On your tables, you'll see our lineup for next year, so go ahead and mark those dates in your calendar. On the back side are the dates for our other signature programs and events, and the next one coming up is our big one. And we are approaching our sellout limit of 500, which just heartens me more than you can imagine. As we embark, everybody's talked about how long they've been in existence. 2024 will mark our Chamber's 75th anniversary. And if you've met me, you know that we like to do things big and celebrate a little. And I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to serve the Chamber. I work with two of the most amazing women in the office, taking care of our 800 plus members, but the leadership and direction of our board of directors and the support of all of you in this room is what enables us to do the work of the Chamber, and I got the best job in the world, getting to represent this organization, this community each and every day. We will see you on December 7th. God bless.